Consulting Limited is a risk advisory consulting company. We specialize in risk and governance advisory, and we provide our services to the public and private sector. We are excited to be hosting this 7th session of the Risk Conscious Talks. And today we will be talking about ESG risks. So how it's going to work is the next 1 hour, we're going to have this session. We will have a short introduction session with our guest speaker today. We are happy to host her. Her name is Purity Gichuki. She has just joined us for the session, and we are excited to be hosting her. We will just go through the sessions. We go through the session by asking a set of questions, and Purity is going to respond to those questions as we go along. And then at the end of the session, we're going to have a question and answer session. So we will go through the session, and at the end of the session, we'll have a question and answer session. So I'll begin by basically introducing the topic, introduce the guest speaker for today, and then we go through a set of questions that we'd like to listen into, and then we go to a set of question and answer. So that is how we're going to run the 1 hour that we have from now to 3 p.m. And we're excited to start off the session. So I'll start off the session by just basically giving an introduction of what ESG is, and then I will introduce Purity. So ESG risks, also known as environmental, social, and governance risks, refer to potential challenges and negative impacts that a company or organization may face in relation to its environmental, social, and governance practices and performance. These risks are associated with how a company manages its responsibilities and impacts in these key areas. The first one is environmental risks. These are risks related to a company's impact on the natural environment and its ability to manage and mitigate environmental challenges. Social risks. Social risks pertain to a company's interaction with people, communities, and the broader community. Governance risks. Governance risks are risks involving the internal management and decision-making processes of an organization. So addressing and managing ESG risks has become increasingly important for companies as stakeholders, including investors, customers, employees, and regulators, place greater emphasis on sustainability and responsible business practices. Failing to manage ESG risks effectively can lead to reputational damage, legal and financial consequences, and hinder long-term business success. Therefore, many organizations now incorporate ESG considerations into their strategic planning, reporting, and risk management processes. That is why we are here today. This is what we're going to be discussing today with our guest speaker. And so that now you understand the person who is going to be speaking to us on this critical topic, I'd like to introduce our great guest speaker, Purity Gichuki. So Purity Gichuki was admitted to the role of advocate in Kenya in 2018 upon successfully completing a postgraduate diploma in law and bachelor's of law degree, LLB, in 2015. She's currently pursuing her master's in law, LLM, in international trade and investments law. She's currently an ESG and impact officer at a South African-based private equity firm managing ESG matters across its Pan-Africa investment portfolio. Previously, she worked at the East Africa-focused private equity firm where she was a legal compliance and ESG manager. Her extensive experience has been in the fields of ESG, impact and sustainability, and implementation of fund compliance programs through legal and partnership agreements, corporate governance audits, private equity transactions, corporate secretarial practice, and corporate and commercial law. Purity is passionate about impact and industrialization in Africa through adoption of sustainable practices. She is a member of the Law Society of Kenya, the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries, and she is a certified professional mediator. Awesome bio. We are happy to host you, Purity, to this 7th risk conscious talks. And just to also say that we are privileged to have you with your great experience here today.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
So maybe we can start off the session. We will start off the session, and maybe how we're going to start off the session is for you to tell us about ESG and why it is so important today. Why is ESG so important? Everybody is talking about ESG and its importance, and we seem not to really understand what is this, why is there a fuss around this topic, Purity? Please proceed.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you for a wonderful introduction and also giving us a layer on what ESG is. So I will just give it a deep dive on what it is and also for the session. So I'm happy to be here. So on your first question on what ESG is a tool and a framework within which organizations and companies come up with a framework within which they manage the risks and opportunities that emanate from environmental, social, and governance. So for new people on what ESG is, as Carol has mentioned, ESG is environmental, social, and governance. So when an organization wants to incorporate ESG into their practices, it ensures that they are very cognizant of the environment they're operating in, the people that they are working with, and also the leadership and the management structures that they have in the organization. So why is ESG important? ESG is important because it helps organizations have an organized and a structured approach within which they manage the risks and the opportunities. And they do this by coming up with an ESG policy and a management system that understands the business that they are in and the risks that are there, and ensuring that they have like a tailored approach within which they are going to manage them. The other importance of having ESG is to help the company improve its financial performance. When a company is cognizant of its risks and manages them in an efficient way, at the end of the day, it ends up performing well. It reduces its expenses that could injure the company performance, and it also helps the company to be strategically prepared in case the company wants to grow, to expand, and to get any funding. Then they would be able to show any third party that they are managing their risks in an efficient way. The other importance of managing ESG is creating value in the long run and in the business chain, and also sustainability in the long run.
All right, thank you very much. Maybe you can, from your experience, because you have worked in this space for a long time, maybe just tell us some examples of maybe how we can be able to manage these 3 critical risks: the environmental risk, social risks, governance risk. So when we say an organization is ESG compliant, how does it look like in terms of managing these critical risks? So maybe you can just tell us, I mean, from your experience just doing this kind of work, how does an organization which manages its ESG, how does it look like?
Okay, so an organization...
Are you there? Sorry.
Yes, can you hear me? Hello? Hello, can you hear me, Carol?
Yes, hi, please proceed. Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Okay, so to answer your question, an organization that has incorporated ESG into its systems and its processes, one, it looks very organized, because in case of any accidents, in case of any issue, in case of any negative implications that may arise, then this organization has ways within which it solves these problems. So this is how ready it looks, strategically ready, and in such a way that this company will be able to develop even its culture. And you'll see that the employees are very motivated to work in such a place because their human rights are protected, And you can see that at the end of the day that this company is creating value, not just for itself, but for the community and for its employees and for its stakeholders and also its shareholders. You would also see that this company is well organized, because you'll find that they have like a board of directors that has the right skills and is giving the company the right strategic direction to go. You'll also find that the management is up to date on the current laws and regulations and ensuring that the company is compliant. And you also see that this company would have less risks that would make the company pay penalties, and therefore reducing or taking away the little revenue that the company is making. So you'll see that the company is organized and that it is up to date on standards, and you'll find that it is also documenting ways in which it is operating and how it is managing its risks and implications that may arise.
All right, thank you for that. So one of the things I hear is that we are going to have more motivated employees. You will have a well-functional board. You will have shareholders who, are happy because the organization is well managed and able to, return profits and such kind of stuff. So this is great for any organization to be able to ensure that these risks are actually taken care of. So maybe one of the things that I also want to ask is, how do ESG factors relate to sustainability practices, and why are they considered important for long-term corporate success? So we have talked about a company which has taken up ESG risks, and maybe we are asking ourselves, how do the ESG factors relate to sustainability of business practices, and why should we consider these for long-term business success?
Okay. Thank you for that. So maybe let me just start by defining what is sustainability. Yes. So sustainability in any company is ensuring that the company is maintaining at a certain level or at a certain rate. So when we say sustainability in a business, it is the company being cognizant of all the issues that are affecting it and ensuring that it operates in such a way that it does not negatively impact the environment, the society, and the community. So this therefore means that the company would be doing well, it would be doing good. So when you do good by the community that you're operating in, by the environment that you're operating in, by the community, by the society that you're operating in, at the end of the day, the company will be able to do well. And by doing well here, we mean making money. So then in that way, the company would be cognizant of the sector that it is operating in and some of the considerations to put in place. And let's say, for example, if it is in a factory or a manufacturing plant, it will just look and see, are we using the sustainable materials in our manufacturing process? Are we optimizing our supply chains in the best way possible so that we can reduce, let's say, like the greenhouse gas emissions? Are we listening to our suppliers? Do we have like a grievance mechanism in place in such a way that they can complain of a couple of issues that they have with us and to help us improve? Are we using renewable energy sources? Because at the end of the day, if we're using renewable energy sources, then it means we are going to reduce our power expenditure. Are we supporting the community? Are we sponsoring the youth? Are we supporting, do we have initiatives to support women? Is our corporate culture struggling? What do we need to do about it so that we can be sustainable in the long run? And are we also coming up with products that are helping the economy or the community grow, and also just be cognizant of the impact that our operations have to the community? When we consider those examples and many more examples, this company will be able to be sustainable in the long run. So ESG is just not a good thing to have, but it is one aspect that if you incorporate it in the business, this company will last for generations to generations because it is cognizant of the community and the society and the environment. Yeah, so it will be sustainable.
Awesome stuff. I like the way you have broken down what like a manufacturing company would do to ensure sustainability. And I like the use of renewable energy. And I think that's a great aspect as we speak about climate change. Maybe from you, because you come from the finance sector, what are some of the things that organizations in the finance sector need to do to ensure that they are ESG compliant? Just giving a mirror of what you have talked about manufacturing companies.
Okay, so Carol, just a clarification, is it like within, because for me, I'm in the private equity side, so we work mostly with sector agnostic sectors that are in manufacturing. So you want it in specifically in the finance sector? Did you mean like banks and the likes?
Yes, banks.
Yeah, so one thing that I've seen as an emerging trend is sustainable finance that banks have started to appreciate. And in this, it basically means the banks are now looking at, other than just confirming that you're able to qualify for this facility, they're also going deep down to understand what sector are you in. Are you in a sector that can be classified as a category A? Is it a risky business? Would it have any environmental issues? Would it have issues that could affect the employees? Do you have are your governance structures in place? And the banks would go deep would do a deep dive into all these issues, just to ensure that wherever they are putting their money into, this the company will be able to pay up this loan. Because if the ESG matters are not well managed, then it therefore means 2-3 years down the line, this company would not be in a position to pay the loans. So you'll find most international financial organizations, in their offer letters or in their agreements, they have some of the clauses that they require the person taking the loan to comply with. So even though that person has not complied with at that time, then they would do like a due diligence to confirm whether this would be a good place to put our money into or not. If it is not, if it's medium risk or low risk, then they would put clauses in the agreements saying within this period of time, then we expect you to comply with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 3 issues. And then they would do checks over time to confirm that they are being done. So in the financial sector, they've started appreciating these ESG issues because they've done like a research and understood why are these loans not being paid. Then they realize it's because this company does not have proper governance structures. If it's a manufacturing plant, they did not have like the proper personal protective equipment. If it is in whatever different sectors, the company did not well understand the risks that lie. And if you don't understand the risks that time, later they would come up and they would negatively make the client unable to pay up the loan.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. I like the analysis that now we are basically saying that if you're not ESG compliant, you may not even be able to access a facility. Or if you don't, or if you are not compliant, maybe you have a higher interest rate to pay because of non-compliance on some of these critical areas. So thank you for that. So maybe just tell us, what if I'm an organization, I'm managing an organization, what are the top 5 things I need to do to be, as I think about ESG, what are those top 5 ESG risks that, as a practitioner in this area that you think are the most important ones?
Okay, so some of the ESG risks that a company needs to be cognizant of and take action is, 1, the legal and regulatory or reporting risk. The company needs to be cognizant of the laws that are applicable to it and ensuring that it is complying to it. And if it is a member of any organization, then this statutory body have some of the reporting requirements that that need to be done. So then this organization needs to ensure that it is well organized in that manner so that it can avoid penalties that may arise. The other issue would be productivity and operational risks. If a company is not able to protect human rights, then it means they would have high staff turnover. At the end of the day, they would declare redundancies because the company is not performing well. They would lose talent. They would lose the corporate culture. Then in that case, to be able to prevent this productivity and inefficiency risks is training, skills and development within the organization, so that the employees are able to know what is required of them and to perform as required, and also to prevent issues that may arise, like lost work injuries. I saw in the previous session that the Caroline hosted on health and safety. Some of health and safety issues would be lost work days. So if an employee probably was climbing a certain place and maybe there was a trip and fall, then this employee would not be able to perform for a couple of days, and would be paying them a salary, and it means we are making loss because we cannot see any output out of it. The other risk that could arise is competition risks. Most into their systems and into their practices, and they're incorporating them into their daily lives. So at the end of the day, you would find a competitor that is incorporating ESG, and the one that is not doing ESG would be doing well, and that would be a risk. Good traction in the market. The other one that if we are not able to have the proper equipment to put off fire, conducting fire drills and having emergency exits on our organization, then we would have this fire risk. In case there's a fire on any plant, then it means you're not able to commence operations for a certain period of time. Even though you have insurance in place, then you have lost value of the money that you would have made that time. So these are some of the ESG risks that a company may be cognizant of, and would put the measures in place to ensure that these risks do not create long-term liabilities.
Thank you for that, and thank you for responding to that. The first risk you have identified is legal risk or regulatory, and what we call it in risk management is compliance. And we say if you don't comply, there are penalties, there are interests. You will lose part of your revenue in making some of these payments. And that's one of the challenges that we have. And maybe just to dig into maybe that risk a bit is that there are very, very many laws that exist now that you're a trained lawyer. So organizations are supposed to comply to very, very many laws. And when we talk to most organizations, they're not sure whether they are all compliant to all these laws and regulations. Just yesterday, we were speaking about the Employment Act, and one of the requirements of the Employment Act is that organizations should ensure that they do not pay their staff in piecemeal. You know, you are supposed to pay the full salary on protection of wages. And I was speaking to some group of civil society organizations who depend on grants, and so sometimes they don't have adequate resources to actually pay and comply to that part of the law. So my question to you is, how do organizations like the ones we manage, and even civil society organizations, even businesses, know which laws to comply to? How can they be able to be compliant to all the laws and regulations as we go along? Maybe you can tell us from now your legal perspective, how do these organizations then become compliant to all these laws and regulations?
Okay, thanks for that question, Carol. So I think because I've done legal due diligence on companies, and that companies do not know the laws that particularly touch on them. And the simple direct guidance that I give them is, you're operating a company, you have people, so you have employment matters. In the jurisdiction that you're operating in, there are employment laws. So you need to look, what are the employment laws? What are the clauses that you need to have on the employment contracts and all that? if you are in an insurance company, there's a statutory body that regulates the insurance companies. If you go to their website, you'll be able to see all the insurance laws that touch on the insurance industry, and it's just laws and ensuring that there's compliance. So it's just basically knowing the industry that you're operating in, knowing the statutory body that manages that particular industry, and you find that they will have done considerable effort in putting laws, rules, and regulations that touch on that particular industry. If you know that you're also operating on, let's say it's like an industry that is has waste, then you know that you're excreting that waste or disposing that waste. You know that there will be implications on the environment. Go and check environmental laws that touch on it. Like in the Kenyan perspective, there's NEMA, right? So you go on the NEMA website and know these are the laws that particularly touch on this. If it's a regulated entity under the Capital Markets Authority, under the Nairobi Stock Exchange, you'll find that they have the reporting requirements and also the laws that touch on it. So it's just basically understanding the sector that you're operating in, knowing that you deal with certain people, you deal with certain suppliers, know in case there are any laws that touch on everything that you're working on. But there are also cut-crossing laws, like for example, company laws. Like if you're a company, operating company, then you need to ensure that you're complying with the Companies Act, filing your returns in time, and ensuring that you're operating on that level. Employee matters, and yeah, so there are cut-crossing topics, and then there are those that are specific.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. I think that's a good one, and I think for organizations, it's critical for them to understand what are the laws which affect their organizations as they manage them. So one of the things about ESG is there are very many there are some emerging ESG risks that maybe as a practitioner you're aware about, but it is not apparent to organizations and to people now. And maybe in the near future, they will have a huge impact because we say in risk management, what our job is in risk management is to be proactive about the future and see how we can be able to mitigate now so that if this thing does take place in the future, then we are able to have mitigated it, and then the residue risk is minimized. So my question to you is, what are the things that you foresee, ESG risks you foresee emerging now that will have great impact to organizations going forward? Maybe you can tell us a few of those that you think you have in mind that you see are going to affect organizations in the near future.
Okay, so a couple of emerging trends here. So I have like 5 in mind. So one is 2X. 2X has been a conversation that has been going around, and what 2X entail is women being involved in ownership, in boards, in leadership, in management. That has been an emerging trend, and you find that any organization that has initiatives that support women and ensures that there's representative of junior staff members in the leadership position, then this company is considered to be 2X eligible, and it's easy to get funding from that perspective because they understand the need of having women and just not women, just a mixed blend of men and women in leadership position because of different ideas and different ways within which they see things. So this has been one of the emerging trends. The second emerging trend is climate. There's been a lot of conversation on climate. Recently, we hosted a climate conference here in Nairobi, which has been great, and people are still yet to understand what is this climate thing. And climate, it just basically entails people putting practices that ensure that the environment will be conducive to live in for generations to come. And for me, like in my ESG role, what we do when we do a due diligence in any company, we go into a deep dive of looking at physical and transition risks. And physical risks would basically look at has there been any floods in the recent times? Has there been any earthquakes? Just acts of God. So we would basically look at these physical risks, because if these physical risks have happened before, then there's a high likelihood that they would happen again. Some of the transition risks would be some of the us moving into a low carbon economy. When you're moving into a low carbon economy, it means any actions that have been put in place to ensure that the companies or organizations or even individuals, their practices do not produce a lot of greenhouse gas emissions. This is carbon dioxide. So then climate has been one of the things that the companies need to be cognizant of. Companies need to also look at whether are they using energy sources that release less emissions into the atmosphere and all that. So when you need to consider these climate issues, so that at the end of the day, because laws are still being developed, once they come into place, then they would not be too heavy on the company, because there are companies that are struggling to keep up with these ESG things and these emerging trends. Then if you start by making small steps, then you'd be able to ensure that these issues do not catch up with you. The other emerging trend is impact. The companies are now being you're required, of course it's not an obligation, but it is good to measure the impact of your company operations and your businesses, and how to measure impact. Some of the themes that we have been using is on the Sustainable Development Goals, which has been looking on cut-crossing topics such as gender equality, innovation, and climate, just as we have discussed. So just company measuring its impact and ensuring that it is using these opportunities for the betterment of itself and also for the community. And then the other issue that has also been an emerging trend is responsible investment. So responsible investment ensures that business integrity is not forgotten at the end of the day. So business integrity ensures that the companies are complying to anti-corruption laws, anti-money laundering laws, and ensuring that it's ethically and morally standing. So at the end of the day, the company, by being a responsible investor, it basically means you're looking at ESG together with impact and as well as business integrity. And the last one that I had also mentioned before is sustainable finance. And that is where the banks and the microfinance institutions and the PE funds and the DFIs are very cognizant of the risks that lie in any companies, and being very skeptical not to fund these organizations or coming up with obligations or pointers within which these institutions would comply with if investment is done in there.
Well, thank you for that. Those 5 areas, and I like the 2X and climate change. I think those are very, very critical areas. Maybe now that you are in private equity, the issue of 2X, you say that companies which are complying to ESG would get some form of funding. Maybe tell us a bit more about that and the existence of this criterion of ESG. Maybe some bit more about that, 2X.
Okay, so 2X is, it was formulated by the United Nations, and we have FMO that has come up with a toolkit within which you can look whether you are 2X eligible or not. And in this toolkit, it basically has the sectors with different sectors of of businesses, and how women are supposed to be involved in terms of either by owning shares in the company or being in at the decision-making level, that is in the board, and also in senior management and also in junior management. So you'll find in sectors that are like labor intensive, for example, in mining, they would not require women to be heavily involved there, because those would therefore require like that male a male to be there. But there are sectors like, let's say, in finance, in bankings and all that, you'll find they've given thresholds within which you'd be 2x eligible or not. So you'll find there will be like, say, a 50% threshold, say in like a bank or any manufacturing industry or education and the likes. And then you find like a 30% threshold that is given in the board, or 20% in management positions. So it's basically women being involved in those three sectors, and then the toolkit ensures that now you look, if you qualify, then you find that there are different thresholds that to it. Yeah, so basically that's 2x, just ensuring that women are heavily involved into business. And they're also, the last one that I forgot is also initiatives. Are there any initiatives, like for example in the bank, are there any loans that are tailored to support women and women-owned businesses? So you'd find if there's a business, if there's a financial institution that has all these initiatives, then it would be 2x eligible. And companies that are 2x eligible, you find that they get good and higher funding, because these investors are very focused on improving women's life, considering past historical injustices to this gender. Yeah.
Okay, right. That is the good music to my ears. I totally believe in women economic empowerment. That is a good strategy. So maybe some of the challenges that, maybe you can tell us some of the challenges that organizations have in integrating ESG into their overall risk management, because, there is already an existing practice where organizations are able to, identify and also mitigate various risks. So maybe from your perspective and being an ESG practitioner, what are some of the challenges organizations have in integrating ESG risk management into their overall risk management framework?
Okay, I'd say some of the challenges that they encounter, one is not knowing the risks that are in that particular business that they're operating. And in that case, then they would need expert opinion or involvement. And you'll find that most companies do not have this financial muscle to employ a dedicated person who would be able to tell them, these are our risks and this is how we need to manage these risks. So I think one is they're not able to know the risks that lie, and also it is very expensive for them to hire dedicated resources or even consultants, because they also don't come in cheap. And then some of the challenges that they may also be facing is technological challenges. So you find you really want to incorporate ESG and come up with sustainable practices or sustainable ways of producing your products. But you'll find that the technology that will help you do that is also not very expensive, is not very cheap. For example, a technology that uses coal and a technology that uses thermal electricity, they're all priced differently. But coal is not good from a climate perspective because of the emissions that it produces into the atmosphere. So you'll find getting that thermal plant would be too expensive, and also when they get it, there's also that electricity expense and energy expense that might be there. So I think that would also be another challenge. The other challenge would be this climate talks on ensuring that we are reducing the carbon emissions. It is not easy for the companies. It is maybe easy for these third world countries because they have all the capital to change up how they've been operating. But for our businesses that are even struggling to keep up on generating revenue and even paying its employees and all that, then it not be easy for them to come up to reduce their emissions significantly as they're expected, even coming up with carbon sinks so that they're able to trap the amount of carbon that is being emitted. These things don't come cheap. So I think these are some of the challenges. And of course, this has also been an argument where these third world countries are coming strong. You need to comply with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But then you find also African countries are not emitting as much, but then we are asked to comply, and we're not being given that support, that financial support to be able to do that. And it's becoming even a challenge because all these requirements are not easy to comply with. So I think those are some of the challenges that small or medium organizations may face. And there are very many ways to overcome it, but this is done progressively.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you very much. I think that's very helpful for us. And just to recap some of the things you've said is, lack of understanding. I keep saying that risk is already difficult to understand. Then you add ESG risks onto it, and it becomes something totally different. And part of the reason we began this talks to basically just enlighten people on risk management, and happy to do this on a regular basis. I think a lot of, like you said, training is required in understanding what ESG risks are. Everybody's speaking about them, and it is important for people to understand. Then lack of financial muscle, that is one of the other things you have said. And this is something that affects organizations left, right, center. We are saying we want to be industrialized as a country, and we have all these areas to comply to. And like you have said, for organizations which are growing organizations, this is something that would be quite expensive for them to do. And we as maybe practitioners need to think about how do we help small organizations to comply, because we really need them for the future. And also thinking about renewable energy. You've just given an example of coal, which could maybe be cheaper than getting into renewable energy. And as a country, we are where we are, and we need to industrialize. And maybe what is the best way forward for us, looking for cleaner, cheaper sources of energy to grow our industries. So I think these are pertinent issues that we are dealing with, and also helping us in reducing carbon emissions. Knowing also that in Africa, the carbon emission is not as high, but we are expected to comply, and thinking about how do we do it progressively and ensuring that we still industrialize in a proper manner. So I think I like those critical points, and they're very important for us as we think about how do we take up ESG into organizations and start telling organizations, no, this is required of you, and it will benefit your business, or it will benefit your organization going forward. So maybe as now an ESG practitioner, would you say some of the key principles and practices that organizations should adhere to maintain strong ESG performance? So what are some of the key principles or practices? From your opinion as an ESG practitioner, can you be able to say organizations need to adhere to maintain strong ESG performance?
Okay, I think to maintain strong ESG performance, one is coming up with a policy, an ESG policy. And this ESG policy will be able to list out some of the risks and opportunities that lie within the company, and also coming up with management programs to manage these risks. The other issue would be employing dedicated resources, like an ESG officer within the company who will be dedicated to ensure that all the risks that arise or could possibly arise are being managed well. And also this dedicated resource would be responsible to implement these management programs and the policies that may that will be formulated within the company. I think the other issue would be taking corporate governance very seriously. And here I mean having board of directors that are qualified to sit within the board of the company, not just, for example, if I have 2 or 3 friends and we had this nice business idea, and we've opened this business, it's just not us only sitting in the board, yet we need additional resources, like let's say in the audit and risk, in the legal side, on HR matters and all that. So just ensuring that the board of that company has the right skill set to ensure that the company's going concern is being managed well, ensuring that the management personnel are also very qualified and people who would be motivated enough to ensure that the company is keeping up with the laws and regulations and ensuring that any action items that arise from the board, they are being implemented well. The other issue is ensuring that the board and also management has gender diversity. There's a mixed blend of ideas here and there, ensuring that the company has constitutive documents like the memorandum and articles, ensuring that these statutory returns are done in time, ensuring that there's like a corporate governance code in the organization, which adheres to the principles of corporate governance. That would be accountability, transparency, ensuring that the conflicts of interest are also dealt with, ensuring that there's a structured decision-making process, that the shareholders' rights are also properly documented and adhered to, and just ensuring that there's a structured way of doing things and just not doing things in a haphazard way. So just this is basically what I've just mentioned just ensures that you understand your risks and you understand your opportunities, and you have created programs and policies and also dedicated people to ensure that everything is being adhered to.
Awesome, thank you very much. I think quite comprehensive on how we can be able to incorporate ESG into our organizations. So it is now 12 minutes to the top of the hour. I think I will give this remaining part of the sessions to questions and answers. If you're on call, you can actually write your question on the chat box. We will read your question on the chat box. I will, however, start with 2 questions which had been asked during registration of this during this session, and one of them was from Lena Akinyi. She's a global internal auditor, and her question to you is, how do you document the ESG risks? How do you document ESG risks? Maybe, I believe it has been answered a bit, but maybe you can just do a high-level view to answer this question from Lena. Purity.
Okay, so thanks, Lena, for the question. So on this, how do you document your ESG risks? How you document them is through an ESG policy and an environmental, social, and management system. So this policy would basically have the risks that underlie this particular business and how these risks will be mitigated. The management programs would also give step and detailed procedures within which these issues would be resolved. This is just, and these risks would also be the current risks that the business is currently facing, and also futuristic risks. And in that policy, there's also a section that talks about emergency preparedness and grievance mechanism. These are issues that may come up and how they are going to be resolved. So it's just coming up with an ESG policy and a management program, and also, if possible, having a dedicated resource to ensure that these policies are adhered to and implemented.
All right, thank you very much. In fact, I say if you want something implemented, put it in somebody's job description so that you can have a way of ensuring that they are performing. So I like your answer that have a dedicated resource. If you don't have one, incorporate it into somebody's job description or distribute the responsibility to already existing staff. So thank you very much for that. So there's another question from Raphael Kuria. He's in the finance services sector, and actually I think a bank, and he's asking, why is ESG important? Why is ESG important? If you can give some quick highlights, because I know you have covered that in our session, some quick highlights on why ESG is important, and just noting he's from the finance services sector, from a banking institution.
Okay, so why ESG is important? It's because, one, at the end of the day, if we are able to manage all our risks and taking advantage of the opportunities that are there, this leads to improved financial performance of the company. So, and by this, it just goes unsaid. If we have everything together, then at the end of the day, why would we not make money? So I would say, one, the importance is to ensure that the company's financial performance is improved. Secondly, it would ensure that we improve shareholders' value to the maximum possible ways. It ensures that the company is ready in case of any accidents, in case of any injuries, in case it will be 100% prepared. The other importance of ESG is productivity. If employees' rights are protected and we have proper management structures, then it would improve productivity of the company and also improved performance. And then the other is just good reputation and a good image to the community and public. If we are able to have ways within which we involve communities and setting up ways within which we listen to have project plans, listening to the communities, and also not doing things that would harm their coexistence, and also employing some of the community members, then they would speak good of us, they would promote and support our projects, and at the end of the day, the company will do well.
Right, thank you very much, Purity. Okay, great. Sorry about that. I think there's something wrong with our with the internet today. Sorry about that. So Dennis is asking a question. Kindly put your questions on the chat box. I'm seeing one question from Dennis, and he is asking, what is the process of writing an ESG report? What is the process of writing an ESG report? Purity, this is Dennis Mwangi.
Okay, thanks, Dennis, for your question. So an ESG report. So here, are you talking about an ESG? If you're talking about like an ESG report in terms of you've done your due diligence on a company and you have to do an ESG report. So the process would basically entail going to the company, requesting for the relevant data that would relate to that particular the issues that you'd like to report on, and then doing interviews with relevant management personnel, and also doing that ESG report. So basically how I do it, I do this ESG report using the International Financial Corporation standards. So you find IFC has performance standards. There are like 6 performance standards. So when we are doing an ESG report, we basically focus on those IFC standards and look at what is applicable and what is not applicable to the company, write on it, and then also think about other themes that would be specific to a company, and also some of the emerging trends such as impact and 2X that you'd like to report on, and you would embed them within the performance standards. For example, IFC Performance Standard 2, which talks about labor conditions, you can talk about 2X there. And then you can have a separate now segment that talks about now governance and impact and business integrity. I hope that answers the question, Dennis.
All right, thank you very much for that, Dennis. I hope your question has been answered. Are there any other questions, Sibyl, which are on YouTube? Sibyl, any questions online? Okay, there are no questions online. So are there any other questions? We have the next 5 minutes. If we don't have any other questions, we can, I don't know if we will give Purity a chance to just say her final thoughts. Any other questions? Okay, I don't see any other questions on the chat box, and we have answered the questions that came in during registration of this session. So maybe we can request Purity to give us her final parting shot. As she does that, we'd like to first of all thank her for sharing with us the last 1 hour on her knowledge on ESG. I believe that this has been a very great session, just hearing these very rich nuggets. Just to also note some of the things that say that the benefits of ESG is there's going to be productivity in the organization. If you take up ESG, there will be great performance. The organization will have great reputation, and you're going to promote your shareholder value. So Purity, maybe you can give us your parting shot as we get to the close of this session. Purity.
Thanks, Caroline. Maybe my one parting shot would be, I think ESG is increasingly becoming important, and not just from a law perspective or a must-have. I think it is good to have ESG in the organization, because at the end of the day, you end up doing well. You cannot have ESG into your systems and in your processes, and your company performs poorly. So I think it is one thing that organizations and companies need to consider highly, and to make small steps to ensure that they are incorporating all this into their operations. And at the end of the day, all emerging trends that may come up will not catch them by off guard. Yeah, so other than that, thank you, Caro, for inviting me into this discussion. I've had a good time. I'm hoping to provide more value to anybody who may need me. So just reach out to me through Caro, and we'll be able to widen the scope of discussions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Purity, for that. We really appreciate your input today, and your engagement, and the nuggets that you have shared to us. We are going to put this video is available on our YouTube channel. It has been posted on the chat. You can follow us on the YouTube channel. You can also follow us on LinkedIn. Kindly, Sibyl, put in our LinkedIn on the chat box, and you can always see what it is that we are doing next. We hold risk-conscious sessions every month. Once we come up with the next one, you will see it on our LinkedIn page. So you can also check our LinkedIn page. We have Purity's LinkedIn page there. You can also follow her and also interact with what she is doing. So we have our YouTube or LinkedIn that you can always see the work that we are doing. We are happy to be of benefit to all of you, and we hope to interact in the next session. So thank you very much, Purity, and everybody for being here today. We hope to engage you in other forums in the future. So thank you very much, and we would like to close this session at this point in time. Thank you, and all the best. Goodbye.
Cheers, bye.
Bye. Thanks.